The day I put the magnifying glass away, our marriage changed. At the time, I didn't realize I was holding one. If you had asked me back then, I would have told you I was simply trying to make our marriage better. I thought I was helping. I thought I was encouraging Jake to become the husband I believe he could be. Looking back, I wasn't helping nearly as much as I thought I was. I was exhausting both of us. One of the biggest lessons I've learned after 34 years of marriage is this. Sometimes we spend so much time looking for what's wrong that we stop seeing what's right. And that's exactly what I was doing. I wasn't walking around with a real magnifying glass, but emotionally, I was holding one every single day. Everything Jake did passed under my inspection. If he forgot something, I noticed. If he did something differently than I would have, I noticed. If he didn't respond the way I thought he should, I noticed. If he disappointed me, I definitely noticed. Looking back now, I don't think I realized how exhausting that must have been for him. Imagine living with someone who always seems to notice what you missed instead of what you did well. I don't believe I woke up every morning planning to criticize my husband. I honestly thought I was trying to improve our marriage. But improvement and criticism are not the same thing. There's a difference between helping someone grow and making them feel like they never quite measure up. Unfortunately, I didn't understand that back then. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to focus on what someone isn't doing instead of everything they are? That's what happened to me. If Jake came home from work, instead of simply being thankful he was home, my mind would notice something else. His shoes weren't where I thought they should be. He forgot to tell me something. He didn't do something the way I would have done it. Little things, things that really didn't matter. But because I kept looking through that magnifying glass, those little things started looking much bigger than they really were. The more I looked for flaws, the easier they became to find. And here's something I've learned. Whatever you're looking for in your marriage, you'll usually find. If you're looking for reasons to be disappointed, you'll probably find them. If you're looking for reasons to be grateful, you'll find those too. The question isn't whether they exist. The question is, which one are you feeding? Looking back, I think part of the problem was me. That's not easy to admit, especially after you've been married for a long time. But it's true. I spent too much energy trying to change Jake instead of asking God what he wanted to change in me. I wanted Jake to be more this and less that. More organized, more talkative, more expressive, more like the picture I had in my mind. Then one day, I finally realized something. Jake wasn't my project. He was my husband. My job wasn't to change him. My job was to love him, pray for him, respect him, and allow God to continue working in both of us. That realization stopped me in my tracks because I saw something I had never really seen before. I had spent so much time trying to shape Jake into the husband I thought he should be that I wasn't appreciating the husband God had already given me. That realization broke my heart because the truth is, Jake was a good man. He loved me. He worked hard. He was faithful. He was committed to our family. He wasn't perfect, but neither was I. And for the first time, I stopped asking, Lord, when are you going to change Jake? And I started asking, Lord, what do you want to change in me? That question changed everything. I wish I could tell you I changed overnight. I didn't. Real change rarely happens that way. It happened one decision at a time, one conversation at a time, one ordinary day at a time. But before anything changed between Jake and me, something had to change inside of me. Looking back, I think that's where lasting change in every marriage begins. Not by asking, how do I fix my spouse? But by asking, what kind of husband or wife is God calling me to become? That question changed the direction of our marriage. Once I realized what I had been doing, I had a decision to make. I could keep holding that magnifying glass, or I could put it down. It sounds simple, but it wasn't. Because when you've looked at someone through that lens for years, it's easy to believe that's just the way you are. I had developed the habit of noticing what was missing instead of noticing what was there. And habits don't change overnight. They change one choice at a time. So I started making different choices. Not because Jake had suddenly become a different man, but because I wanted to become a different wife. I stopped expecting perfection. I stopped feeling like I had to comment on every little thing. I began asking myself a question before I opened my mouth. Is this really important, or is this just my preference? You'd be surprised how many things were simply my preference. Not right, not wrong, just different. And different isn't always a problem. Sometimes it's just different. Instead of looking for what Jake was doing wrong, I began looking for what he was doing right. I thanked him more. I noticed the things I had taken for granted. I noticed how hard he worked. I noticed his faithfulness. I noticed that he showed up every day. I noticed the man I had fallen in love with instead of the man I was trying to improve. Something else changed too. I became intentional. When Jake came home, I greeted him with joy. Not because every day had been perfect, not because we never had problems, but because I wanted the first thing he experienced when he walked through the door to be that he was welcome. I'd kiss him. I'd tell him I was glad he was home. Sometimes I'd call him during the day just to say I was thinking about you. There wasn't always a reason. I just wanted him to know he mattered to me. I started fixing some of his favorite meals, not because food fixes a marriage, but because love often shows up in ordinary ways. Marriage isn't usually strengthened by one grand romantic moment. It's strengthened by hundreds of small moments that quietly say, I still choose you. Now let me be honest. At first, Jake didn't know what to think. After all, people don't usually change overnight. I'm sure he wondered if it would last. Sometimes he'd look at me almost like he was thinking, what are you up to? And I understood why. If someone has experienced criticism for a long time, it takes time before they believe the atmosphere has really changed. That's why consistency matters. I didn't change for a week. I didn't change for a month. I made a decision that this was the kind of wife I wanted to become. Not because I was trying to earn Jake's love. I already had his love. I was trying to love him better. And there is a difference. One of the greatest lessons I learned is that appreciation has a way of accomplishing what criticism rarely can. Criticism usually makes people feel like they're never enough. Appreciation reminds people they're valued. That doesn't mean we ignore real problems. Every marriage has difficult conversations. Jake and I certainly did. There were things we had to work through. There were times we disagreed. There were times we had to ask for forgiveness. I'm not talking about pretending everything is fine. I'm talking about learning the difference between correcting every little thing and speaking about the things that truly matter. There is wisdom in knowing the difference. Looking back, I wish I had learned that sooner, because peace began to grow in our home, not when I finally fixed Jake, but when I stopped trying to fix every little part of him. That's when something beautiful began to happen. Looking back, I don't think putting the magnifying glass away changed only me. I think it changed the atmosphere inside our marriage. Homes have an atmosphere. You can feel it when you walk through the front door. Some homes feel tense. Some feel peaceful. Some feel like everyone is walking on eggshells. And some feel like a place where you can finally breathe. Without even realizing it, I think our home slowly became a place where Jake could breathe again. Not because our problems disappeared. Not because we suddenly agreed on everything. But because he no longer felt like every conversation was an evaluation. Every decision wasn't being measured. Every mistake wasn't being remembered. He could simply be himself. Looking back now, I think that's one of the greatest gifts we can give the person we love. The freedom to be themselves while still knowing they are deeply loved. Around our 25th year of marriage, I began noticing something. Jake was changing too. He became softer, more patient. He smiled more. He laughed more. And one day, he said something I'll never forget. He looked at me and said, God told me to have more patience with you. I've carried those words in my heart ever since. Not because they made me feel guilty, but because they reminded me that while God was working on me, He was working on Jake too. I wasn't the only one growing. He was growing too. Sometimes we pray for God to change our spouse, and all along, God is quietly changing both of us. Another thing changed. Jake became more talkative. People who know him today probably wouldn't think much about that, but I noticed. Looking back, I don't think it happened by accident. I think he finally felt safe. Safe to tell me what he was thinking. Safe to share an opinion. Safe to laugh. Safe to be wrong. Safe to be himself. That doesn't mean I never disagreed with him again. It doesn't mean we never had difficult conversations. We did. Every marriage does. But there is a difference between having honest conversations and making someone feel like they can never get it right. I finally learned the difference. People sometimes ask me, so what's the secret to staying married for 34 years? I always smile because there isn't one secret. There are thousands of little decisions. Choosing kindness when you're tired. Choosing patience when you're frustrated. Choosing forgiveness when you've been hurt. Choosing gratitude instead of keeping score. Choosing to see the good instead of searching for another flaw. Marriage isn't built in one extraordinary moment. It's built in ordinary mornings, ordinary evenings, ordinary conversations, ordinary acts of love that over time become an extraordinary life together. Looking back, Jake and I stopped trying to fix each other. We simply started living, and there was so much peace in that. If you're holding a magnifying glass over your marriage today, I'd like to ask you a question. What are you looking for? Are you looking for reasons to be disappointed? Or are you looking for reasons to be thankful? Because whatever you spend your time looking for will usually become the thing you see the most. That doesn't mean we ignore real problems. If there's abuse, unfaithfulness, addiction, or something that puts you in danger, those things need to be addressed. I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about the little things, the habits, the imperfections, the differences that make us want to say, if only my husband would. Looking back, I spent too much time trying to improve Jake instead of appreciating the man he already was. And when I finally began appreciating him, something beautiful happened. Not only did he change, I changed. We changed. Our marriage changed. After 34 years with the same man, here's what I know. The happiest marriages aren't made up of perfect people. They're made up of imperfect people who decide that love is bigger than perfection. People who choose grace. People who choose patience. People who choose to believe the best about one another. People who keep showing up day after day, year after year, season after season. Today, when I look at Jake, I'm grateful I finally put the magnifying glass away. Because once I stopped focusing on everything he wasn't, I finally began seeing the wonderful man he had been all along. I'm Donna, and this is Still Standing with Donna. And remember, this is a season, not a sentence.